People have to live in unity.
We are still in transition.
Civil society has been decimated.
Of course, we rely on media.
And I think the government has not done enough.
The international community has failed to respond.
No place in the world is perfect.
Hello viewers, I am your host Shivangi Mishra with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show. Global leaders gathered in Jakarta for the 43rd ASEAN Summit and discussed pressing issues such as trade, technology and South China Sea tensions. Myanmar's reluctance to cooperate and suspicions of North Korea assisting Russia with weapons were also major subjects on the table. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized ASEAN's role in India's At East policy and advocated for a post-pandemic rule-based world order. India's rising global influence, commitment to collaboration and respect for sovereignty were underscored amid heightened tensions in the South China Sea due to China's territorial claims. Leaders from around the world gathered in Indonesian capital Jakarta for the 43rd ASEAN Summit. They talked about big worldwide and local problems. Throughout the summit, a subtle sense of unease accompanied discussions on a range of topics including trade and technology and China's growing assertiveness in the South China Sea. The leaders also discussed the Myanmar military government's reluctance to collaborate with ASEAN on a peace strategy and suspicions about North Korea potentially providing weapons to Russia.
Today, tensions remain high from the Korean Peninsula to the South China Sea. I'm grateful to ASEAN member states for your pursuit of dialogue and peaceful dispute resolution rooted in the respect for international law, including the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a grand welcome at the event. PM Modi and ASEAN leaders discussed strengthening of ASEAN integration with the rest of the world and also discussed collaboration in key areas such as the digital and green energy. Modi, in his opening remarks at the meeting, declared the 21st century to be a century of Asia and stressed that ASEAN is an important region for India's At East policy. He also highlighted that building a rule-based world order after the pandemic was essential going forward.
21वीं सदी एशिया की सदी है, हम सबकी सदी है। इसके लिए आवश्यक है कि हम एक रूल्स बेस्ड पोस्ट कोविड वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर का निर्माण और मानव कल्याण के लिए सबका प्रयास, फ्री और ओपन इंडो पैसिफिक की प्रगति में और ग्लोबल साउथ की आवाज को बुलंद करने में हम सबके साझे हित है।
India's prominence at the global forums has been growing remarkably. The fifth largest economy is poised to become the third largest economy of the world in coming years. New Delhi's steadfast commitment to addressing global challenges, regardless of which nations choose to participate, has earned it global respect. India has pushed the message of collaboration, dialogue and problem solving for global peace and prosperity. India has time and again reiterated its position of respecting each individual country's sovereignty, no matter the size and strength of the country. The meeting came amid heightened tensions in the South China Sea after China released a new map laying claims over large swaths disputed by some ASEAN members, triggering protests by these states.
आसियान भारत की एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी का केंद्रीय स्तंभ है। भारत आसियान सेंट्रलिटी और इंडो पैसिफिक पर आसियान के आउटलुक का पूर्ण समर्थन करता है। भारत के इंडो पैसिफिक इनिशिएटिव में भी आसियान क्षेत्र का प्रमुख स्थान है।
The absence even a global heavyweight like China does not deter any global or regional grouping, for they have found the support of democratic and law-abiding global powers. The intricate web of international relations will continue to evolve, with India firmly entrenched as a key player on the global stage. In the end, it was not about who attended, but how the attendees came together to address the pressing issues that faced humanity. And on that front, India was more than ready to lead the way. Moving on. Millions of Afghans are at risk of starvation as the United Nations is forced to cut food rations due to lack of funding. The UN World Food Programme has warned that nearly half the country's population is facing potentially life-threatening levels of food insecurity and malnutrition this year. The World Food Programme has been providing food assistance to millions of Afghans since the Taliban took control of the country in August 2021. However, the agency has been struggling to raise the necessary funds to continue its operations. We have a report.
2 years have passed since the Taliban group seized power in Afghanistan, and the nation finds itself teetering on the brink of collapse. Hundreds of thousands are facing hunger, while millions grapple with joblessness and crushing poverty. The humanitarian and economic catastrophe, already inflicting immeasurable suffering on countless individuals, shows no signs of relenting and in fact is anticipated to worsen. In a recent development, the United Nations World Food Programme announced that it would be forced to cut food aid to an additional 2 million people in Afghanistan. This grim decision is a direct consequence of inadequate funding. The World Food Programme has received merely a quarter of the essential financial support required to sustain its operations in Afghanistan this year. The cuts will have a devastating impact on the people of Afghanistan, who are already facing a severe hunger crisis.
دو دفعه دریافت کردم کمک یک پیسه مزدور نقد بود 3,500 روپیه نقد داد 3,500 روپیه خوب چند پیسه خوب بازم کفایت میکنه کمی دیگه دو دفعه کمک قاش میگه برای تو دیگه سامان داری دیگه خلاص دیگه کمک تو نمیشه بسیار با تشویش میشه دادن با تشویش نه شب خود خواب ندارم با تشویش تو مونده زره شدم شب تو بنم قرار تو زره ایستو که آخر با چی میشه آینده مخاطب آینده اولاد چی شو.
This reduction in food assistance comes at a time when concerns over diminishing aid for Afghanistan are mounting. The World Food Programme estimates that 15 million people in Afghanistan are facing acute food insecurity, and the cuts could push millions more into hunger.
15 million people who actually need food assistance. But we've had to cut from March, 13 million people was kind of our winter planning period. And then in May, we had to reduce 8 million people from assistance. And this month, we're having to reduce another 2 million. That means 10 million people that we had served previously and who need assistance are going to bed hungry without any food assistance that WFP is able to provide.
Afghanistan, emerging from decades of conflict, now operates under the internationally isolated rule of the Taliban, who assumed control following the withdrawal of US-backed forces in 2021. An astonishing 3/4 of the population now depends on humanitarian aid for survival. The development assistance that previously sustained the government's finances has been severed, while sanctions against the Taliban and frozen central bank assets abroad have exacerbated the crisis. Additionally, restrictions on women imposed by the Taliban, preventing many from working, continue to hinder the country's path towards formal recognition and recovery.
Moving on. Pakistanis are struggling to bear the brunt of massive electricity bills. Locals say the monthly bills they are receiving are as high as their paychecks and they simply cannot afford them. A number of protests have also been carried out across the country. Failed fiscal policies coupled with a high inflation rate have already left Pakistani citizens struggling to make ends meet. Have a look at how Pakistanis are struggling at both individual and community levels. Pakistan is struggling to contain public anger over soaring electricity bills, while commitments to the International Monetary Fund limit the caretaker government's options. The country was hit by a nationwide shutdown strike, with business owners closing in protest against high electricity tariffs and taxes. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets to demonstrate. Fahim Mohammad Naeem was feeling desperate and angry at a market square in Karachi as he flapped the electricity bill that was almost equal to his entire paycheck for the month. The 47-year-old was one of many hundreds across Pakistan who were protesting a sharp jump in the electricity bills due to higher tariffs and increased taxes.
एहतजाज करने आए अपने हकूक़ के लिए, अपने बिलों के लिए। बिलें बहुत ज़्यादा कर दिए, गरीब आदमी कहाँ से देगा? 25-30 हज़ार आदमी कमाता है तो 24 हज़ार का बिल आया है, कहाँ से देगा बंदा? अब इसके लिए एहतजाज के लिए निकले हम।
The residents of Pakistan in many cities are out on the streets to protest against record utility bills, demand that the government roll back the recent increase in the electricity tariff and abolish all taxes on electricity bills. Hundreds of women took to the streets in Pakistan's biggest city, Karachi, to protest against soaring electricity prices. Naeem's wife Shagufta Naz said the family had only been using 2 light bulbs and a ceiling fan very sparingly these days, but the bill kept soaring month after month.
हमें तो बिजली के हम तो 2 बल्ब हैं एक रूम में, किचन में और एक पंखा इस्तेमाल करते हैं और वो भी हमारी कोशिश होती है कि दिन के औकात में जो है हम पंखा जो 2 बल्ब जो है ना ही जलाएं तो बेहतर है, ज़रूरतन जलाते हैं। और पंखे के लिए भी ये होता है कि बच्चे स्कूल गए हुए हैं या बच्चे बाहर खेलने गए हुए हैं तो हम जो है वो उसको कोशिश करते हैं कि पंखे को भी ज़रा कम से कम ही इस्तेमाल किया जाए, लेकिन उसके बावजूद जो इतनी बिजली की बचत के बावजूद बिल जो है बहुत ज़्यादा आ रहे हैं।
Naeem's workplace is a tiny room on the first floor of a dilapidated building where he sits with an apprentice, repairing gold and silver jewelry and also polishing old, tarnished ones that customers bring in. The 15-year-old Naeem's daughter was worried that she might have to drop out of school if her father could not pay her school fees because of the skyrocketing inflation in the country.
महंगाई इतनी हो गई है, बाबा बहुत ज़्यादा परेशान रहने लगे हैं और बिल भी बहुत ज़्यादा आते हैं। अब इस वजह से बाबा कहते हैं कि मैं तुम्हारी पढ़ाई अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकता हूँ, तो अब मुझे डर है कि मेरी पढ़ाई ना इस वजह से छूट जाए।
Pakistan's inflation rate stayed above target at 27.4% in August. Data showed as reforms set out conditions for an IMF loan complicate the task of keeping price pressures and declines in its rupee currency in check. There have been sporadic protests across the country after consumers received July power bills following a recent increase in electricity prices and taxes.
a key demand of the International Monetary Fund for the revival of a long-stalled financial assistance package.
Time now for Asia This Week, the stories from across the continent.
Heavy rain in Hong Kong caused a lot of flooding in the city. Many streets, shopping malls and subway stations were filled with water. Because of this, schools were closed and people were told to work from home. Hong Kong had the most rain in 1 hour in the past 140 years since they started keeping records. The leader of the city, John Lee, is very worried about the flooding and he told all government departments to do everything they can to help. The company that runs the city's trains, MTR Corporation, had to close one train line and had delays on others. Last week, teachers in South Korea held a protest in Seoul to ask for better protection of their rights and to bring attention to the fact that many parents are being too pushy and causing problems for them. This has even led some teachers to take their own lives. The organizers of the protest said about 50,000 teachers came together because they feel that nothing is improving in the education system. On the same day, people, including parents and young students, were seen at an elementary school in Seoul where they placed flowers and left messages for a teacher who had passed away. This teacher died in July at the school, and it was reported that teacher was stressed because of complaints from a parent about a disagreement among students. Since then, more and more public school teachers have been speaking up about how they are mistreated by parents and students. Some of these teachers are even accused of child abuse when they try to discipline their students. Supporters of Israel's right-wing coalition government gathered in Jerusalem last week to express their approval of a proposed judicial overhaul. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his coalition of nationalist and religiously conservative parties argued that this overhaul is necessary to prevent judges who were not elected from having too much power in politics. On the other hand, opponents of these changes believe that they weaken the judiciary's role as an important check and balance in Israel's political system. Israel has a single parliamentary chamber, a mostly ceremonial presidency, and no formal constitution. Drone footage showed thousands of Israelis at the protest, waving flags and holding large banners. In August, Israel's Supreme Court began hearing the first of several appeals related to the judicial overhaul initiated by the coalition, which has caused a significant domestic crisis. The government plan has caused divisions among the Israeli population and even within the military, which is typically seen as a non-political institution that unites a diverse society. Concerns about military readiness have been raised on both sides of the debate. Last week, millions of Shiite worshippers gathered in the holy city of Karbala for the religious pilgrimage known as Arba'in. Approximately 5 million pilgrims came from Iran for this event. Over the past 20 days, more than 22 million Iranians made their way to Karbala through various routes, according to the Shiite Waqf office in Iraq. Arba'in marks the end of a 40-day mourning period for Imam Hussein, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad, who was killed in battle in 680. The pilgrimage is considered one of the most significant for Shiite Muslims. During Arba'in, worshippers engage in mourning rituals which involve walking, raising their hands, crying, and sometimes even self-flagellating by slapping their chests or foreheads. It's customary for participants to wear black clothing during this time. Many of the pilgrims undertake a symbolic 80-kilometer walk from the city of Najaf to reach the Shiite holy city of Karbala as part of their journey for Arba'in.
Now let's embark on a colourful adventure of Janmashtami, the day recognized as Lord Krishna's birthday throughout the country. Lord Shri Krishna is the 8th incarnation of the mighty Hindu Lord Vishnu. Let's walk you through the significance of the festival and how the celebration of Krishna's birthday is turned into a grand fiesta.
Vasudev Shri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who embodies all divine qualities and possesses infinite benevolence for his devotees. Shri Krishna is known for his charming personality and the divinity he ensues in his every disciple. Janmashtami is the birthday of the most beloved god, Shri Krishna. Among Hindus, it is the occasion for the magnificent celebrations. The followers of Lord Shri Krishna observe fast and honor the Lord by organizing bhajan kirtans on this day. The celebrations run for the whole day and the night.
जन्माष्टमी जैसे हम लोगों का तो बहुत ही बड़ा मतलब ये श्री कृष्ण की जन्मभूमि ही है। ये भारत हमारी मेरे राम जी की श्री कृष्ण की जन्मभूमि है, तो जन्माष्टमी यहाँ पर बहुत धूमधाम से पाला जाता है। हम सुबह से व्रत रखते हैं और रात को 12 बजे जैसे कि श्री कृष्ण का जन्म जो है कि रात के 12 बजे के बाद होता है, उसके बाद घर में जैसे पूजा पाठ करके व्रत तोड़ते हैं। और यहाँ पर जैसे हमारे राम मंदिर में, इस्कन मंदिर में जो भी सब आते हैं दर्शन करके जाते हैं। और बाल गोपाल जी को पूरा हम सजा के, घर में भी जो छोटे छोटे बच्चे होते हैं उनको भी राधा और कृष्ण की तरह सजा के एक कृष्ण का जन्मदिन पालन होता है।
At midnight, which is known as the traditional hour of his birth, the devotees take turns to swing the beautifully decorated cradle of their beloved Lord Shri Krishna and seek his blessings. The whole atmosphere gets filled with prayers and chants of Hathi Ghoda Pal Ki, Jai Kanhaiya Lal Ki to hail the birth of the Supreme Lord. Shri Krishna Janmashtami is also named Shri Jayanti, Gokila Ashtami or Shri Krishna Jayanti in different parts of the country.
बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है और काफ़ी भीड़ यहाँ पे है। जन्माष्टमी त्यौहार बहुत अच्छा है। यहाँ पे होली, पिछली बार में होली में आए थे। अब की जो है जन्माष्टमी देखने के लिए सब कृष्ण जी और राधा मैया की जो है मेहरबानी, उनका सौभाग्य है जो दर्शन उनके हुए आज।
During the festival, the temples are decorated with lights and flowers to welcome the Lord of Love. The childhood idol of Shri Krishna is embellished with brand new shining attire, a jewel-studded crown and other decorations. For the devotees, it is a scene to behold for their lifetimes. Sweets are given to the devotees in the form of blessings and sacraments after being offered to the Supreme Lord.
ये बहुत बड़ी सौभाग्य की बात है कि उनके जन्मदिन पे, उनके जन्म स्थल पर है और इतना सुंदर माहौल है, इतना सब अच्छा है, उत्साह और उत्सव का माहौल बना हुआ है भक्तों में भी और यहाँ के सब लोगों में भी, तो बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है यहाँ।
During this festival, another event is Dahi Handi, which depicts the childhood days of Lord Krishna when he would notoriously build a human pyramid to reach the pot filled with milk butter, his favorite delicacy. During Dahi Handi, a group of young boys make a human pyramid to get to the butter pot hung at a certain height, and the youngest member among them would break the delicious butter pot. It is a kind of sport in several towns, cities and hamlets in India, where a lot of teams enroll themselves to participate in Dahi Handi. The winners get the prize money or trophies for their performances. The life story of Lord Shri Krishna is an inspiration for millions of people around the world and offers a comprehensive system of spiritual knowledge and self-realization.
The festival is celebrated for 2 days with seers and saints celebrating the festival on day 1 and people celebrating it on the second day. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.
People have to live in unity.
We are still in transition.
Civil society has been decimated.
Of course, we rely on media.
And I think the government has not done enough.
The international community has failed to respond.
No place in the world is perfect.